I'm Mark, and I used to think I had a pretty normal life. Sarah and I had been married for 5 years, together for 7. We had the cute little house, 2 dogs, and a shared love for bad reality TV. Things weren't always perfect, but whose are? We'd built a life that felt, well, ours. Lately, though, things had been off. Sarah was working longer hours, always on her phone, and there was this new, almost secretive energy about her. I just figured it was stress from her new marketing gig, maybe a big project she couldn't talk about. Little did I know, she was working on a project, all right, one that involved a crown, a castle, and a betrayal so epic it sounds like it belongs in a fantasy novel. This is still so surreal. I feel like I'm narrating a movie trailer. The first real crack in the foundation happened last Tuesday. Sarah told me she had an emergency consultation in Dubai. She was frantic, packing designer dresses I'd never seen before, silk things that cost more than our mortgage, and she couldn't look me in the eye. When I asked who the client was, she just mumbled something about high net worth international expansion and kissed me on the cheek. Her skin felt cold, and she smelled like a perfume that wasn't hers, something heavy, like incense and expensive leather. As soon as the Uber pulled away, I noticed she'd left her iPad sitting on the kitchen island. It was buzzing incessantly. Usually, I respect her privacy, but the notifications weren't coming from Slack or email. They were encrypted messages from an app called Threema, and the preview text on the lock screen made my blood turn to ice. "The private jet is fueled. His Majesty is waiting, my desert rose." I felt like the floor had been pulled out from under me. My heart started thumping against my ribs so hard it actually hurt. His Majesty? I thought I was losing my mind. I grabbed the iPad, my hands shaking so much I almost dropped it, and realized her anniversary was still our anniversary. I swiped in, and that's when my world officially ended. My fingers were trembling so badly I almost fumbled the iPad. The anniversary date, our sacred day, opened up a portal to my worst nightmare. The Threema app was front and center. I tapped it, and there it all was. Messages, photos, videos. Not just flirtatious texts, but full-blown love letters from someone signing off as King Rhaegar. Yes, I know, it sounds like something out of Game of Thrones, which only added to the surreal horror. There were pictures of Sarah, draped in jewels, laughing with this man. He was older, with a regal beard and a stern, unsmiling face in most of the pictures, but in one, he was looking at her with an intensity that made my stomach churn. And the messages, oh God, the messages. Plans for a future, talks of a new life, promises of palaces and unimaginable wealth. He was showering her with gifts in the photos, a diamond necklace that looked like it belonged to royalty, a solid gold watch, even a deed to a villa in some Mediterranean paradise. It wasn't just an affair, it was an entire alternate reality she'd been building, brick by gilded brick behind my back. I scrolled, numb with shock. Each message was a fresh stab. My queen, he called her. My vision blurred. I couldn't breathe. My wife, my Sarah, was planning to become a literal queen with another man while I was still picking out dog food for our pugs. The absurdity of it all was almost as sickening as the betrayal itself. I spent the next 3 hours sitting on our cold kitchen tile, scrolling until my eyes burned. It wasn't just the messages. I found a hidden folder in her cloud storage titled Logistics. It was a digital dossier of her exit strategy. There were scans of a second passport I never knew she had, issued by a country I had to look up on a map, and wire transfer receipts for amounts that made my head spin. Tens of thousands of dollars moved into offshore accounts I didn't recognize. While I was budgeting for a new water heater last month, she was coordinating the transfer of personal assets to a vault in Zurich. The sensory details of our home started to feel like a mockery. The smell of the coffee we'd shared that morning still lingered in the air. Her favorite world's best wife mug was sitting in the sink, half full of cold tea. I looked at our wedding photos on the wall and felt a physical wave of nausea. Every smile in those pictures felt like a calculated lie. She hadn't just been cheating, she had been eroding our life together, piece by piece, converting our shared history into liquid capital for her new royal life. I wasn't just a husband anymore. I was a loose end she was waiting to snip. I was still sitting on the floor, surrounded by the glow of the iPad and a mountain of printed bank statements, when I heard the unmistakable sound of a key turning in the front door. My heart didn't just race, it stopped. The door swung open, and there she was, Sarah. She looked frantic, her face pale under her expensive foundation. She didn't see me at first. I was tucked behind the kitchen island, but she made a beeline for the small, hidden wall safe in our office. She was muttering to herself, something about a secondary travel document and the courier waiting at the terminal. Then she turned around. She saw me. She saw the iPad. She saw the papers scattered across the tile like white autumn leaves. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating, and smelled faintly of the expensive foreign perfume she'd been wearing. For a split second, I saw a flash of the woman I loved, the one who used to steal my hoodies and cry at Pixar movies, but it was gone in an instant, replaced by a cold, calculating mask I didn't recognize. "Mark," she said, her voice eerily steady, "you weren't supposed to be home for another hour."
"I wasn't supposed to be home?" I repeated, my voice cracking like dry parchment. I stood up, my legs feeling like lead. I held up the iPad, the screen still glowing with a photo of her draped in emeralds. "And you weren't supposed to be my desert rose, Sarah. Who the hell is Rhaegar?" She didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. Instead, she let out a long, weary sigh, as if I were a child interrupting an important business meeting. She set her designer handbag on the counter, a bag that probably cost more than my car, and looked me straight in the eye. "It's bigger than you, Mark," she said, her tone terrifyingly matter-of-fact. "I met him at a gala 3 years ago. It started as an investment opportunity, but then he saw something in me, a partner, someone who could actually handle the weight of a crown." She paused, smoothed her skirt, and added the kicker that felt like a physical blow to the stomach. "I've been moving our joint savings into a private trust for months. I needed the liquidity for the transition. You'll get the house eventually. I've already signed the quitclaim deed." The audacity was breathtaking. She wasn't just leaving, she was acquiring a new life and treating our marriage like a liquidated asset. Before I could even process the quitclaim deed or the fact that she'd drained our savings, there was a sharp, rhythmic pounding at the front door. Not a neighborly knock, a heavy, authoritative thud that rattled the frames on the wall. "They're early," Sarah whispered, her eyes darting to the window. 2 men in charcoal suits, wearing earpieces and expressions made of granite, stepped into my living room without waiting for an invitation. One of them carried a small, velvet-lined briefcase. He didn't look at me, he looked at Sarah and gave a slight, respectful nod. "The motorcade is 2 minutes out, ma'am. We need the documents now." The briefcase clicked open, and for a second, the kitchen was blinded by a glint of pure, polished gold. It was a literal bars of bullion-style payment, a signing bonus for her new life, I realized, with a sick lurch. My wife grabbed the second passport from the safe, tucked it into her bag, and turned to me. There was no apology in her eyes, just a chilling, regal detachment. "I'm sorry it had to be this way, Mark, but some people are born for the suburbs, and some are born for history." The door clicked shut behind them with a finality that echoed in my bones. I stood frozen, clutching a dish towel like a lifeline as the low growl of high-performance engines vibrated through the floorboards. I scrambled to the window, just in time to see a line of 3 blacked-out SUVs pulling away from the curb, their tires crunching over the gravel I'd spent all last summer leveling. Just like that, she was gone. No screaming match, no tears, no let's try therapy. Just a motorcade and a woman who looked at me like I was a footnote in her biography. The silence that rushed back into the house was deafening. It was a heavy physical thing that smelled like her leftover perfume and the ozone of the electronics she'd just emptied. I walked into the living room, my legs feeling like they were made of water, and sank onto the sofa. The pugs, sensing the shift in the air, trotted over and whined, pawing at my knees. They didn't know their mom had just traded them for a throne. I sat there in the dark for hours, watching the shadows stretch across the wall, trying to reconcile the woman who liked extra foam on her lattes with the woman who just left in a diplomatic convoy. The sun had fully set by the time I pulled myself off the sofa. I walked back into the kitchen, my movements mechanical, like a ghost haunting my own life. That's when I saw it. Resting on the marble island where she used to chop vegetables for our Sunday roasts was a thick, cream-colored envelope. It was embossed with a wax seal, a crest I didn't recognize, featuring a lion and an eagle. I broke the seal with a kitchen knife. Inside wasn't a letter of apology. It was a stack of legal documents written in a language that looked like a mix of French and something Middle Eastern, accompanied by an English translation. It was a dissolution of union by royal decree. There was also a check. My eyes skipped over the zeros, trying to make sense of the number. It was for $500,000, a settlement, the cover letter called it, for my cooperation and future silence. To Sarah, our 5 years of marriage, our vows, and our shared dreams had a specific price tag. She'd bought her freedom with a king's pocket change. I looked at the check and felt a surge of pure, hot bile. She hadn't just left me. She'd tried to purchase my memory of her. The check sat there, mocking me with its pristine edges and life-changing numbers. I reached out to touch it, and for a split second, I thought about what $500,000 could do. I could pay off the house, travel, finally quit the job I hated. But then I turned the page of the cover letter, and the blood drained from my face. Acceptance of these funds constitutes a formal non-disclosure agreement under the jurisdiction of the Crown. Any mention of Her Highness's previous life, including names, dates, or domestic details, will be treated as an act of international espionage. My breath hitched. I wasn't just being paid off, I was being erased. I walked over to the window to pull the blinds, and that's when I saw it. A silver sedan was parked 3 houses down, its headlights off, but the glow of a dashboard screen reflecting off a driver's face. As soon as I made eye contact, the car slowly rolled forward and disappeared around the corner. My skin crawled. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The king didn't just take my wife, he bought the rights to my story, and he had sent watchers to make sure I didn't try to rewrite the ending. I wasn't a grieving husband anymore. I was a liability.
The next morning, the sun hit the kitchen tiles with a cruel, indifferent brightness. I reached for my phone to call my brother. I needed to hear a sane voice, but the screen stayed black. No service. I tried the landline. Dead. A cold sweat broke out across my neck. I ran to my laptop, my fingers flying over the keys to log into my bank account. Access denied. Account flagged for security review. My heart hammered against my ribs. I tried our joint savings. Account closed. My credit cards declined. It wasn't just that she had moved the money. It was as if Mark was being systematically deleted from the grid. I refreshed my social media pages, and my stomach did a somersault. Every photo of Sarah and me, our wedding in Tahoe, the trip to Cabo, even the blurry selfie from last Christmas, was gone. In their place were content unavailable placeholders. She wasn't just leaving for a palace, she was scrubbing the Mark era from her history, and the king's resources were making sure I couldn't even prove I'd been married to her. I was standing in a house full of furniture we'd bought together, yet digitally, I was becoming a ghost. The $500,000 check on the counter started to look less like a gift and more like the only piece of me I had left. I needed to get out. The walls of the house were starting to feel like the interior of a coffin. I grabbed my keys and drove to the local Safeway, my eyes constantly darting to the rearview mirror. Sure enough, a different car, a nondescript black sedan, followed 2 turns behind.
Inside the store, the normalcy was nauseating. People were debating over brands of cereal, while my entire existence was being overwritten. I was reaching for a carton of milk when I saw him, one of the men from my living room yesterday. He was standing by the pharmacy, not even pretending to shop. He just stared at me, his hand resting near his blazer pocket. The fear finally curdled into a white-hot, reckless rage. I didn't care about the NDA. I didn't care about the international espionage threats. I pulled out my phone, which had miraculously regained a flickering bar of service, and dialed the private number I'd seen on the iPad's call log. It rang once, twice. A woman's voice answered, but it wasn't the Sarah who loved pugs and bad TV. It was a cold, hollow shell. "Mark," she whispered, "stop. You're going to get yourself hurt. Take the money and go away." "Go away where, Sarah?" I hissed into the receiver, my voice shaking. "You've deleted our wedding photos. You've frozen my accounts. You're treating me like a glitch in your new software." "It's not my choice anymore," she said, and for the first time I heard a tremor of genuine terror in her voice before the line went dead. I practically fell through my front door, the adrenaline from the phone call making my vision swim. I expected the house to be empty, but the smell hit me first. Clothes and expensive leather, the same scent from Sarah's business trip suitcase. Sitting on my sofa was a man I hadn't seen before. He wasn't a suit. He was older, dressed in a traditional gold-trimmed robe that looked absurdly out of place against my IKEA coffee table. He was holding a photo of Sarah and me from our honeymoon. Without looking up, he thumbed the glass, then dropped the frame. It shattered on the floor. "Mr. Miller," he said, his voice a low, melodic rumble. "His Majesty is a patient man, but he does not like glitches. Your wife, the princess consort, is currently being prepared for her coronation. Your persistence is creating a digital footprint that is untidy." He stood up, and I realized there were two more men standing in the shadows of my dining room. One held a tablet showing a live feed of my brother's house, 3 states away. My heart plummeted. This wasn't just about my bank account anymore. The check is a kindness. The alternative is an erasure more permanent than a deleted Instagram post. You have until midnight to deposit that check and sign the digital waiver. After that, Mark Miller ceases to exist in our records, one way or another. The silence that followed their departure was heavier than the one after Sarah left. I stared at the tablet they'd left on the coffee table, the live feed of my brother playing with his kids in their backyard. That was the real dagger. They weren't just threatening my life, they were threatening my world. I looked at the $500,000 check. It felt like 30 pieces of silver, slimy and cold. I looked at the digital waiver on the screen, a single button that would finalize my erasure. If I clicked it, I'd have the money, but I'd lose the right to ever say her name again. If I didn't, well, the man in the gold-trimmed robe didn't seem like the type to make empty threats. I spent the next 4 hours systematically packing a single suitcase. I didn't take the wedding album, it was already broken. I didn't take her clothes. I took my birth certificate, my dog's vaccination records, and a single grainy photo of us before she started wearing silk and smelling like incense. At 11:58 p.m., with the pugs already loaded into the back of my old truck, I walked back to the Pitchin Island. My finger hovered over the tablet. With a shaking hand and a sob I couldn't suppress, I pressed accept. The screen blinked once, turned white, and factory reset itself. The $500,000 hit my newly unfrozen account an instant later. I was rich, I was safe, and I was officially a stranger to my own life. It's been 6 months since that night. I'm writing this from a small, breezy house in a coastal town where nobody knows my last name, and honestly, neither do the local records, thanks to some clerical adjustments made by the Crown's lawyers. My brother is safe, my pugs have a bigger yard, and my bank account is full of blood money that I can't spend fast enough to feel clean. Sometimes I see her on the news. They don't call her Sarah anymore. She's Her Royal Highness, draped in silks and standing 2 steps behind a man who looks at her like a prized stallion. She looks radiant, powerful, and utterly unreachable. But occasionally, when the camera zooms in, I see that flick of her eyes, the way she used to look when she was about to tell a lie, and I realize she's just as much a prisoner of that gold as I am. So, here's my advice for the relationship advice lurkers. Trust your gut when the overtime starts feeling like a script. If your partner starts dressing for a life you can't afford, they've probably already moved there mentally. And most importantly, don't ever believe that love is priceless. Everyone has a number. Mine was 500 grand and my family's safety. Her number was a throne. I'm rich, I'm safe, and I'm completely alone. I traded my history for a future. And every time I see a black SUV or smell incense, I wonder if the glitch is finally being corrected. Be careful what you wish for. Sometimes the grass isn't just greener on the other side. It's paved with gold and guarded by men with earpieces. TLDR, my wife cheated on me with a literal king, stole our savings to buy her way into royalty, and paid me $500,000 to legally pretend she never existed. I took the money, and I think I'd do it again, and that's the part that keeps me awake at night.